My parents mocked my gardening dream, seating me far at my brother's wedding, but now their restaurant thrives on my vision. I was always aware as a child that I was unique among my relatives. I am a 35-year-old woman who comes from a long family of prosperous upstate New York restaurateurs. My mother, 60, oversees all of the employees at our family's traditional Italian restaurant, which is governed with an iron hand by my father, 65. Next is my 38-year-old older brother, Mike, who is the golden kid destined to take over the company. I've been employed by Liberty Mutual Insurance for 10 years, moving up the corporate ladder to become a senior claims adjuster. My name frequently appeared on quarterly performance awards, and my office on the 28th floor had a breathtaking view of Central Park. I had a six-figure salary, a cozy condo in Manhattan, and the pride of my parents, who never stopped boasting about their successful business daughter. On paper, I was living the American dream. However, I felt like I was slowly suffocating every morning as I looked at my computer screen while going over accident claims. My escape, my lunch breaks in the little rooftop garden I had designed on our office building, was the only thing that kept me going. I had persuaded management to allow me to renovate the abandoned area, paying for it out of pocket. Spending thousands on soil, planters, and seasonal flowers made my coworkers think I was insane. But those priceless moments spent among flowers and herbs were the only times I felt fully alive. I spent almost every weekend in Grandma Rose's garden, which was my genuine haven. The most exquisite garden I had ever seen encircled her Victorian home on the outskirts of town. Grandma Rose was teaching me the language of flowers, companion planting, and soil pH, while my brother spent his weekends studying the restaurant industry. One day in particular, while I was assisting her with planting springtime tulip bulbs, stands out in my memory. It was early October, and the air was crisp with the aroma of falling leaves. My hands were in the dirt for longer than required, and Grandma saw it. She patted the ground with her aged hands and said, "You feel it too, don't you?" I nodded, unable to put into words how it felt to work with plants and how alive I felt in her garden. That connection to the earth, not everyone has it, you know. It's a gift. She showed me her treasured collection of gardening diaries that day, which included decades worth of handwritten notes about every plant she had ever grown, complete with meticulous sketches and pressed flowers. "Someday," she continued, "these will be yours when you're ready to follow your true path." The pivotal moment occurred during Thanksgiving dinner the previous year. With the aroma of turkey and Dad's special gravy filling the air, it was the typical after-hours family get-together at the restaurant. Mike was showcasing the new wine cellar at the restaurant, his most recent endeavor that Dad had readily approved. As I sat there, fingering the admission letter from the New York Botanical Garden School of Professional Horticulture in my pocket, Mom was talking about plans to grow the catering business. I finally plucked up the confidence between the pumpkin pie and turkey. I said, my voice hardly steady, "I'm going back to school. I've enrolled in the Botanical Gardens landscape design program." The ensuing hush was deafening. Mom's fork clattered on her plate, and Dad's cheeks turned the color of the cranberry sauce. Mike snorted and almost choked on his wine. "What are you?" The wine glasses vibrated as Dad's voice boomed across the table. "You want to abandon your work to play with plants when you're not getting any younger?" Mom's palm gripped her chest violently as her eyes welled up with tears. "But you're a senior claims adjuster, honey. How many individuals would kill for that job? Do you know how your 401k is doing? Your health insurance." Mike, who had been referring to me as the gardener since we were young every time he saw me caring for Mom's houseplants, couldn't help but laugh. "So, you're going to start gardening like a pro now? Are you insane? Living in a treehouse is the next step." Even though my hands were trembling beneath the table, I made myself keep going. "My letter of resignation has already been turned in. The 15th of December is my last day. January is when classes begin." The plates jumped when Dad slammed his hand down on the table. "You can't count on our assistance if you do this. We didn't send you to business school only to see you lose everything because of a midlife crisis." Grandma Rose was the only one who stayed composed, purposefully putting down her wine glass with that quiet power that could still make my father feel like a little boy. She asked him, "Joe, when was the last time you were genuinely happy doing anything you didn't pick for yourself?" Feeling defeated, I drove to Grandma Rose's house the day after the Thanksgiving catastrophe. She was cutting her beloved roses in her garden when I discovered her. She was wearing her favorite faded blue gardening apron, the one with pockets filled with plant identifiers and trimming tools, even though it was cold in November. As I assisted her with the pruning, I remarked, "Grandma, they don't understand. They believe that I'm wasting my life. They might be correct. Maybe starting again at 35 is crazy of me." Putting down her shears, Grandma Rose gazed at me with those age-old eyes that had witnessed so much. "Your parents don't see the world the way we do, but they just want what's best for you, sweetie. These plants and the earth itself are magical. It would be a sin to throw away your gift." She showed me her greenhouse and her most fragile plants. She showed me a tiny orchid that was having trouble blooming as the warm, humid air surrounded us. "Take a look at this one." I knew better, even though everyone insisted it couldn't be saved. The most exquisite things don't often show themselves right away, like you, sweetheart. I began taking classes at the New York Botanical Garden that winter. Basic living expenses and 2 years of schooling would be covered by the money I saved from the insurance company. I gave up my view of Manhattan for a little balcony where I could try container gardening when I moved to a smaller apartment in the Bronx near the school. The program proved to be more difficult than I had anticipated. Landscape design required intricate calculations and a thorough understanding of ecological and architectural principles. It wasn't just about making things seem nice. My dreams were filled with plant combinations and garden designs, and every night I would go to bed feeling both tired and content. Rachel, a 28-year-old classmate with bright red hair and contagious energy, became my best friend. One day, as we were working on our CAD projects, she said to me, "You should see your face when you're designing. You seem to be speaking your mother tongue at last." However, family get-togethers turned into an endurance test. Even though I shifted from the family table to the bar, I continued to go to the restaurant for Sunday dinners. Mike would joke that I hadn't mastered the art of properly pushing a lawnmower yet, while Mom would give me newspaper clippings about corporate employment openings. Dad would sourly discuss Mike's intentions to expand the restaurant. I entered a little landscape design competition 6 months into my education. It was merely a small-scale event organized by the city's gardening association. Making sustainable urban areas that could meet social and environmental objectives was the main goal of my design. I was shocked to take first place. Even a brief item about it appeared in the local paper. At our next Sunday supper, I eagerly broke the news in the hopes that it would finally alter their viewpoint. Rather, Dad hardly raised his head from his plate. "That's good, honey. But when will you start living your life seriously?" Mike added, grinning as always. "Hey, perhaps you could create a garden for the dumpster area at the restaurant. Make it appear really fancy." In an attempt to be helpful in her own way, my mother said, "You know, if you apologized, Liberty Mutual would definitely accept you back. Mrs. Henderson informed me that your post has not yet been filled." I contacted Grandma Rose that evening as I was driving home, with tears clouding my vision. As I vented my frustrations to her, she listened to me calmly. She disclosed, "Your father was the same way when he started the restaurant. His father wished for him to pursue a career in law. Look at him now. He is so certain that his path is the only one. It's interesting how life comes full circle, my love." As the months went by, my abilities improved. Small commissions began coming in, initially from friends and then from their friends. One local lifestyle blog showcased my container garden designs. My family, however, was unimpressed as Mike continued his increasingly venomous gardener jokes. Dad would shift the topic anytime my work came up. Afterwards, Grandma Rose received the devastating news that her cancer was aggressive. She disappeared in a matter of weeks. She was still trying to give me gardening advice while propped up in her hospital bed the last time I visited her. "The winter bulbs," she said in a feeble but determined tone. "Remember to place them sufficiently deep. And never forget that you're doing precisely what you were supposed to do, my love." I had no idea at the time that the circumstances leading up to my brother's impending wedding would fundamentally alter the relationships of our family. However, that is a tale that is worthy of being told separately. First update. I wanted to explain what transpired at my brother's wedding and the fallout after my last post received so much attention. 3 weeks have passed since my previous post, and a lot has changed. First, Grandma Rose's will underwent an unexpected change. She bequeathed to me her entire home and yard, which is currently valued at well over $800,000. For years, Dad had had his eye on that property, intending to use it for more restaurant parking. Dad's face took on that recognizable purple hue when the attorney revealed her choice. "This is absurd," he blew up. Mike was even blunter. He scoffed and said, "Great. Now she can really play gardener with her own little kingdom." Amanda, his 32-year-old fiancée, snickered next to him and was already treating me with the same disdain as my brother. The fascinating part, though, is that there was a condition attached to the property. Grandma's plan for the garden had to guide my development and upkeep. She had left behind thorough plans and notebooks that included ideas for transforming a portion of the garden into a demonstration of environmentally friendly urban gardening. In order to save some of Grandma's rarest plants, I threw myself into remodeling the garden and collaborating with neighborhood conservation organizations. After word spread, I was contacted by a reputable gardening magazine about including the renovation in their Heritage Garden series. My brother's wedding followed. The large cream envelope containing the invitation was dripping with self-importance and gold foil. Given that Amanda's father owns half of the county's real estate, it was obviously intended to wow her affluent family. I made the decision to go, and I wore a basic yet stylish designer dress that I had purchased with some of the money I won from my competition. The ceremony was held at the most costly location in town, and Mike made sure everyone knew he had covered all of the costs personally. But I subsequently found out Dad had played a big role. The reception was where the real drama began. I was seated at table 23, which was adjacent to the kitchen doors and literally the farthest table from the main family table, even though we were immediate family. In fact, rather than my name, my place card said the gardener. Amanda went out of her way to introduce me to her acquaintances in the society. "And this is Mike's sister," she continued, smiling patronizingly. "The person who, what do you do again, exactly? Put some flowers in the ground, or whatever." Behind their champagne glasses, her companions tittered. However, karma tends to balance things out. A famous event planner, who knew me from the gardening magazine story, had been engaged by the venue. "Your sustainable garden designs are revolutionary," she said enthusiastically as she approached my table, expressing her honor at meeting me. "I've been keeping along with your Instagram makeover project." The mayor, Amanda's uncle, took the microphone to deliver his address, and that was the real kicker. He complimented my creative designs and highlighted seeing my work on the city's new Sustainable Parks initiative. All of the society members who had been giggling suddenly turned to stare at me with renewed curiosity as the mayor continued to compliment the family's gifted landscape architect. Dad and Mike sat there with their expressions frozen. Amanda was trying to control the situation by frantically whispering to her companions. Following the speech, a number of Amanda's family members approached me to discuss garden design. The head of the city's Parks and Recreation Department was one of them. For their next urban regeneration project, he said, they were searching for creative designers. Mom called the following day. For the first time in months, she spoke hesitantly. "I read the piece on Rose's garden in the magazine. The pictures, they're stunning. You've truly created something unique there. Although Dad and Mike haven't mentioned anything yet, I've observed that the restaurant's About page now highlights their family's involvement with sustainable urban design. It's ironic that they still haven't offered me congratulations for any of my accomplishments." Next week, I have a meeting with the Parks Department to discuss the urban renewal project. Given that the proposed location is adjacent to my father's restaurant, it would be my largest commission to date. As Grandma Rose used to say, sometimes life has a way of coming full circle. Second update. I appreciate all of your encouraging remarks regarding my most recent update. 2 months have passed since the wedding, and things have changed in unexpected ways. The project for the Parks Department was larger than I had anticipated. They sought to turn an entire city block into a sustainable urban green space, complete with community gardens and an educational center, rather than merely designing a straightforward garden. The catch: the proposal would drastically cut down on parking spaces near nearby establishments, such as my father's restaurant. I noticed my father and Mike sitting in the back row, their faces darkening with every slide of my presentation as the first designs were given at the municipal council meeting. The parking lot they had been using informally for years would be removed as part of the project, and a community area and vertical garden would take its place. Mike got to his feet during the public comment session, his face flushed. Local businesses will be destroyed by this proposal. Has anyone thought about how it will affect the area's well-known eateries? He purposefully avoided eye contact with me. The mayor, Amanda's uncle, then raised his voice. In fact, research indicates that urban green spaces raise property values and foot traffic. There are designated restaurant zones with outdoor dining areas in your sister's design. If anything, this should help your business. Everyone in the room understood the irony. It was obvious that several of the council members were trying not to smile. This is where things become even more intriguing, though. Our family restaurant received an unexpected visit from a Michelin inspector last week. My father had been dreaming about this moment for decades. One little issue, though, was that their famous herb garden, which provided the fresh herbs for their well-known dishes, had suddenly begun to deteriorate. I was working on my project plans at Grandma's place when my mother called me in a panic. The plants are perishing. Tomorrow, the inspector will return for dinner. Your dad, he's not doing well with it. My father called an hour later, his normally authoritative voice seeming strained. We need your assistance. Oh, I spoke in a neutral tone. I didn't think gardening was a legitimate career. He paused for a long moment before asking, choking out the words, "What is your consultation fee?" After I named a figure, $30,000 for consultation and emergency garden rehabilitation, he spluttered, "That is highway robbery." In actuality, I replied, "That is less than the going charge for managing horticulture emergencies. However, I'll offer you $25,000 as a family discount." They made the payment in a day. I identified the issue: poor soil pH and drainage problems. I applied a fix and preserved their priceless herbs. The inspector's inspection went well, and the local newspaper included an article about the restaurant's possibility for a Michelin star, emphasizing their creative herb garden created by a family member and famous landscape architect. My father was questioned by the reporter regarding the layout of the garden. When he had to admit my involvement, I saw him fight to suppress his pride. The finest aspect? I had nothing to do with the unsuccessful garden. All they had been doing was following an old gardening book's out-of-date maintenance instructions. They had almost lost their dream review because they had refused to seek advice from an expert, me. Especially my father now has to grin and explain that his daughter, the landscape architect, created the restaurant's herb garden whenever someone remarks on it. Since then, the term gardener has not been used in a derogatory manner. The true fulfillment, however, came from an unexpected place. I was recruited to create Amanda's new showpiece garden by her mother, a legendary society queen. Her justification: "Well, darling, if you're good enough for the city's urban renewal project, you're good enough for us." The expression on Mike and Amanda's faces when they saw me at their house, talking plans with her mother over pricey tea in the conservatory, was priceless, especially when Amanda's mother mentioned my fee, which was triple what I charged my father, without any family discount. My design studio will formally open next week. The prime location next to the restaurant, where my father had been intending to expand, was the ideal spot for me. Their herb garden, which I now take care of for a hefty monthly charge, is clearly visible from the wide windows. It's interesting how life works itself out. The irony would have pleased Grandma Rose. Third update: 3 months have passed since my last post, and I would like to offer the story's resolution. Your assistance has been amazing along our journey. The restaurant's adjacent urban renewal project began to attract national attention. The sustainable vertical gardens were featured in a number of major design magazines, and the project was nominated for an annual innovation award by a well-known environmental group. My father's restaurant received unexpected attention as a result of the exposure, but not in the way he had hoped. People started traveling especially to see that cutting-edge eatery with the magnificent herb garden created by the architect-turned-gardener. The family's skillful fusion of horticultural and culinary skills began to be noted by food experts. A documentary team from a well-known streaming service reached out to me last month about including the project in their Urban Change series. The gripping family story about how the restaurateur daughter transformed urban gardening piqued their curiosity in particular. The producer wanted to shoot in the restaurant and my design studio. Given that local business associations were lauding the project's beneficial effects on the community, my father couldn't say no without coming across as petulant. A feature on the connection between culinary gardens was also desired by Food and Wine magazine. The producer questioned my father about his early resistance to my changing careers throughout the filming. His awkward wriggling as he attempted to explain himself was captured on camera. We only wanted what was best for her. That's all. I had an unexpected visitor at my studio the following day. My dad appeared older and more exposed than I had ever seen him before. He was holding his original recipe journal from when he initially opened the restaurant, a battered leather-bound book. "Your grandmother was the only person who encouraged me to open the restaurant," he replied softly. "My father wished for me to pursue a career in law. Cooking," he claimed, "was beneath our family." He set the cookbook down on my desk. Didn't I become just like him? I'm trying to make my kids live the life I believe they ought to have. 80% of their vegetables and herbs now come from a rooftop garden project that started with the rehabilitation of their herb garden. There were months on the waiting list for tables with a garden view. The restaurant's Instagram following exploded with pictures of the vertical gardens, and food experts complimented the harmony between farm to table. At a recent business meeting, even Mike had to admit the difference. Indeed, they were now required to set up formal meetings with me. Gritting his teeth, he acknowledged that their earnings had gone up 40% since the garden makeover. After her mother hired me as the official landscape architect for their country club restoration, Amanda's attitude drastically changed. All of a sudden, she was telling everyone how she had always sensed that her sister-in-law's relationship with nature was unique. Last week, everything came together. The success of our urban revitalization initiative impressed the city's sustainability board, which suggested a significant extension. My father's restaurant was to be the focal point of a green corridor that would link a number of nearby businesses. The catch: the restaurant would have to create a display garden out of the remaining parking space. In addition to promising to highlight the restaurant in their tourism promotions, the city provided significant tax benefits. This time, instead of calling a meal where everyone chatted over me, my father arranged an emergency family meeting. I sat at the head of the table in the restaurant's private dining room for the first time. "We need your help," he remarked in a meaningful voice. Not only as an advisor, as a collaborator. They made an unexpected suggestion. They intended to establish a joint venture that would incorporate the restaurant and my design studio into a horticulture and culinary experience center. In order to incorporate my professional name, my father even proposed changing it. The financial estimates were provided by Mike, who appeared to have bitten into a lemon. It was difficult to ignore the numbers. Even he had to acknowledge that my hobby of gardening had become a lucrative business venture. Mom produced a long-forgotten old picture of me at age 6, displaying my first tomato plant in Grandma Rose's garden with pride. "We ought to have witnessed it back then," she remarked quietly. "A corporate office was never the right place for you." The businesses are now integrating. An exquisite herb leaf design may be found in the restaurant's new logo. Each meal on the menu identifies the precise garden location of its ingredients, and the menu proudly states, "From our garden to your table." Our project was featured in a national magazine's list of the top 10 innovative family businesses last week, when they especially commended the second-generation restaurateur family for embracing their daughter's goal to transform urban dining. The irony was not lost on anyone. It all began in Grandma Rose's garden, which is now a sustainable urban agriculture education center. We are collaborating with nearby schools to offer educational programs, and the waiting list for workshops is months long. The most unexpected thing? Before the restaurant opens, Dad now spends his mornings in the garden. He was wearing one of our branded garden aprons when I recently saw him diligently caring for the herbs. He appeared calmer than I had seen him in a long time. At family get-togethers, people used to make fun of me as the gardener. Do you recall that? Welcome to the garden table, where the gardener's vision meets culinary excellence, the host now says to patrons. I was moved to tears by a letter I received yesterday. A high school student who had participated in one of our gardening classes sent it to us. She wrote about how she was motivated to defy her parents, who wanted her to pursue a career in medicine after seeing my tale in the documentary. Her love was environmental science. A sketch of a garden idea she came up with was included in the letter. It looked a lot like my early sketches from Grandma Rose's journals. In an effort to start our first kid mentorship program, I've extended an invitation to her to work as an intern this summer. I've learned a lot about family legacies from this entire ordeal. It's not always necessary to follow the route your ancestors paved. Sometimes, honoring their heritage means broadening it to encompass new opportunities. My father constructed a restaurant that served delicious meals and united people. In order to nourish not just their bodies but also their souls, I added gardens that help children feel more connected to the earth. I want to express my gratitude to everyone on Reddit who helped me along the way. When my own family failed to recognize my value, your support kept me going. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who shared similar experiences of pursuing their aspirations in spite of family resistance. You made me understand I wasn't the only one. Stay on course if you're having similar difficulties. Occasionally, the same thing your family makes fun of turns out to be the secret to changing both your and their lives. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.